24. A flag of truce. Sergeant Mitsuru Ishida, Headquarters, 214th Infantry Regiment, 33rd Division. In the afternoon of 18th of April 1942, while we were busy issuing orders, digging trenches, and receiving surrendered men from the front, 3 enemy tanks with about 50 men approached headquarters. We took up defensive positions, but, despite our best efforts, they crossed over the ridge of a small hill and came straight at us. At 500 meters from us, the tanks stopped, opened hatches, stuck out a white flag, and waved it. We stopped shooting and stood up and swung our arms in answer to them. Then a British soldier jumped out of the leading tank and ran to us with a white flag in his hand. When he reached our trench, he asked for an English-speaking man. He was a nice youth with blonde hair. He wore the black cat badge and 3 angular stripes. He was armed with a pistol at his waist and moved smartly. He was a sergeant. He spoke calmly, not showing any fear, while many of us surrounded and watched him. Interpreter Ishibashi, Lieutenant Uchida, and Second Lieutenant Yuzawa came out to meet him. What he said meant, "Let us stop this foolish fight right now and be friends." Our answer was, "As we have one whole division in Yanangyuan, your unit has no way of escaping. Please tell your chief to surrender to us." The Briton answered, "I understand," smiled and left after shaking hands. We admired his dignified attitude and saw him off until he got into the tank. We felt encouraged that human beings could talk in such a life and death situation. It was an undescribably heartwarming moment on the bloody battlefield. As soon as the British sergeant went inside, the tanks started firing with full power until their infantry retreated beyond the ridge in the evening light. Hello and welcome to Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and welcome back to another episode of Off My Shelf. And I have chosen a book for you today called Tales by Japanese Soldiers by Kazuo Tamayama and John Nonelli. And this is a really interesting book because the whole book is just populated by literally tales from Japanese soldiers. So they're quite short, some of them, maybe even just a paragraph or two. So you can see, for example, they're numbered and they're not particularly long, and they just go into the normal experiences of the extraordinary perhaps experiences of normal soldiers. Let me just read the back to you, see if it's something that might interest you. Over 305,000 Japanese soldiers fought in Burma between 1942 and 1945. 180,000 of them died. This book tells how the common soldier of the Imperial Japanese Army lived, fought, and died in that terrible conflict. Here are straightforward, honest accounts translated from the Japanese, sometimes moving, often shocking, of what it was like to fight a strange war in a strange country far from home, short of food and weapons, confused, facing death from disease and starvation, as well as enemy action. The 62 tales trace the Burma campaign in chronological sequence and together offer a new perspective on a long and arduous war. Now, the reason I picked this up is because obviously I have an interest in Japan, having spent some years living there, but also my own grandfather was out in Burma during the Second World War. So it was of particular interest to me, and perhaps it will be of interest to you to read these stories of ordinary Japanese soldiers. It's not often that we get to read first-hand accounts and things from the erstwhile enemy, I think it's a very valuable and worthwhile read, and it's not particularly long, so there you go. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Do take care. Bye bye.